Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live with Normal. I'm J.M. Padini, Development Director at the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. It's Friday, June 27th, 2025. You know what that means, friends? We're going to talk about this week's latest cannabis policy and science news, and I'm going to answer your burning questions live. Hey, Brady, thanks for joining us. Hey, take a quick second wherever you're watching to let me know where you are. Drop a note in the comments. Let's see where this is actually streaming, because I'll tell you what, I cannot see anybody's messages on Instagram, and maybe we need to fix that. Brady, I don't have anything. Listen. Show everyone this. The internet is freezing. Everything's weird. I don't know if Instagram's working. This just means that it's raining. That's all it means. And it's not. So listen, we're going to have a fun little chat together. Brady, nothing good about Georgia, my dude. Nothing. But I have an event for you. You coming up in Georgia on Sunday. Sup, Lauren? Good to see you. You know what's up, Lauren, is that Instagram hates us today. It hates us a lot. But I'm it's important. And I want to make sure that people who are trying to watch us on Instagram can watch us on Instagram. So I'm going to try to fix it real quick. Sorry, everyone. Sorry about that. Don't worry, we'll get it right. There we go. Can I have a stream key? That'd be good. In case anyone's thinking about ever streaming anything live. Welcome to Behind the Curtain. Let's see who is here. Hey, Nick. Good to see you. Brady beat you. Usually you're first. Right now we're on Instagram. You're welcome, Instagram. What is that? Hey, Draco's, good to see you. Hey, Mike in Anaheim. Traveling Jazz in North Florida, welcome. Hey, Free the Plant in Tampa. Time Traveler in Southern Illinois. Hey, Steven in Virginia. You know we're always going to talk about Virginia. Hey, Joe, what's up? Hey, everyone that just joined us on Instagram. Now that we finally got that act together, let's pretend like it's new and fresh. Hey, take a quick second and let me know where you're watching from. Also, hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. And if you have any burning questions, drop those in the comments so I can do my best to answer them. And hey, Tio, watching us on Instagram, good to see you. Hey, Mackenzie in DC. Hi from Richmond. Hey, Joe. Again, you're in Maryland. Cool. Got good news about Maryland this week. So that's nice. I mean, every time we have good news, it's nice. Who thinks LinkedIn is working? I see Twitter's working, so that's refreshing. Look at all these things working. All right. We'll start with, oh, hello, Electric Steam in Germany. That's cool. Thanks for watching. Speaking of the news, let's tell Brady about this event first, so we're sure he doesn't miss it. Okay, Brady, Peachtree NORML is hosting an event at Mellow Mushroom, Brookhaven in Atlanta, Sunday, June 29th at 4 p.m. And Representative Jasmine Clark will be there to talk about her legislative effort. This year, it was HB 496. This bill intended to provide limitations on stops, searches, seizures, and arrests based on the odor of marijuana or hemp. Let me get you. Yeah, I know, right, Nick? Let me get you the Eventbrite link for that. And maybe I'll see if we can pop a few details in there right below it. There we go. So Brady, I hope you're going to see Peachtree NORML Sunday, June 29th, 4 p.m. Mellow Mushroom, Brookhaven in Atlanta. Representative Jasmine Clark. Here you go, buddy. Nick, yes. You know, no one's surprised by Pennsylvania not really getting it together, are we? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Ohio got some weirdness going on too. Nebraska. Oh, the list goes on and on. But we're going to talk about hey, Mams. Thanks for your question. Mams has a question about Virginia and asks, with Neil Amin being appointed to the VCU board by Youngkin, will this impact current board members at the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority? Does the board actually do a ton? I don't know if this means Neil has to leave. I don't know if Neil's term was up on CCA, and that's why he's now at VCU. I don't know. I don't believe that would preclude him from serving on two boards, but I'll find out and let you know. And does the board actually do a ton? Yes, the board approves all of the regulations, approves the budget. That's how I'm going to answer that. If you like that answer. I really like working with Neil, so I hope he is staying on the CCA board. That's what I have to say. Oh, Free the Plant. Listen. Free the Plant says nothing is as arse backwards as Florida is with cannabis. I mean, Florida's pretty terrible when it comes to marijuana arrests. They have the highest penalties for the lowest amounts in the country. There are some local decrim laws in place. You do have a really robust medical program. It's not the worst. I think Florida is very Florida on cannabis, and I offer that as somebody who was in fact born and raised in Orlando. Hey, Ren, good to see you. Ren says, North Carolina here, so tired of this hemp shop crap. Do you mean the fact that they exist and that they sell unregulated products? Because we don't really like that either. It's predatory retailers at best. Joseph asks, did you see about the dispensary getting raided in Ford City, Pennsylvania? And I should not do that on this computer. I should do it on this one. No, I did not, but I want to. Ford City, PA dispensary raid. I mean, I won't be able to click it. I was going to say, send me a link, but I won't be able to click it. Oh, this happened. Okay, that's not a dispensary, Joseph, and now I have seen it. Yes, that place got raided after apparently 7 vape stores were raided after a 5-month investigation. I'm not surprised by any of this, but that's not a dispensary. That's an unregulated operator. Nick, cannabis against kings. Hey, Brady, no. Brady says best state on cannabis laws in your opinion? No. I mean, there's something wrong with every single, I mean, there's something you could hate pretty much about any state. There's always something that's like, the taxes are too high. They don't mandate third-party analytical laboratory testing. They don't have adult use retail sales. They don't have employment protections. They don't have, I mean, you can pick apart everything. You know, some states that are pretty well established generally are have accomplished more. You know, Colorado, California, Oregon, Washington. It's just such a mixed bag, and it depends really on what you're looking at, like what makes it best. Hey, Jason. Thank you for bringing this up. Jason says, I saw where North Carolina is talking about finally coming to terms with possibly legalizing it here. Is that true? Yes. Yes, it is. And we have an article in our In the Media section, which I'm going to go find for you right now, Jason, and talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, so Governor Stein announced an advisory council that is purportedly tasked with cannabis product and product safety regulations. What are they going to really do? Who knows? But I heard from someone who's appointed to the council, someone that we work with very regularly, and so I'm super pleased to see he was appointed. But it looks like, wish I were looking at the governor's announcement instead of this news article about it. But here, ABC 11 in North Carolina covered it. I'll just drop a quick link to that, their article. I want to see if there are any quotes from the governor in here, but I can read you this part. It says the governor's office told ABC 11 that any conversation about legalization of cannabis for adults in North Carolina would need to start with the conversation this council is having. Who is that? Oh, Stone. I wish this were a better article. One of our North Carolina volunteers does have a nice quote in this piece, which is why I have it readily available. But I'd like to read the governor's release. There we go. This is better. Here's the governor's release that's better. This is what Governor Josh Stein from North Carolina says. Today, across North Carolina, there are unregulated, intoxicating THC products available for purchase. Just walk into any vape shop. There's no legal minimum age to purchase these products, ! That means that kids are buying them. Without any enforceable labeling requirements, adults are using them recreationally without knowing what is in them or how much THC there is. Our state's unregulated cannabis market is the Wild West and is crying for order. Let's get this right and create a safe, legal market for adults that protects kids. This is a really good language from Governor Stein. I wouldn't have written it any differently. He goes on to say, that is why I'm announcing a state advisory council on cannabis. I am charging this group with studying and recommending a comprehensive approach to regulate cannabis sales. They will study best practices and learn from other states to develop a system that protects youth, allows adult sales, ensures public safety, promotes public health, supports North Carolina agriculture, expunges past convictions of simple THC possession, and invests the revenues in resources for addiction, mental health, and drug driving detection. Those are choices. This is great. This is an executive order that Governor Stein signed, and Yeah. Good work from the governor. Love to see it. Oh, members of the council. I see. This goes on to include the council members. I'm just doing a quick look through to see what I see what I think. There's some, legislative members, which is great. There's a lot of police. There's way too many people from law enforcement. Um, oh, okay. I like one person on this group. Doesn't appear that they have any licensed cannabis operators. Oh, yes, they do. Sweet. They have someone from Koala Enterprises. That is the dispensary that's in the Koala boundary. So that looks good. Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. I did provide Pat Oglesby is the attorney that we know. He's the founder of Center for New Revenue. I've worked with Pat and as my colleague Paul, and he reached out to us with some questions regarding impaired driving, and I provided the language around what we do here in Virginia. So, because I don't think we're getting it wrong in Virginia at all. All right, thanks for asking that question about North Carolina, because that was on my list of things to talk about. Free the plant. You're born and raised in Tampa. All right, neighbor. Hey, Ryan. Happy Friday. Ryan asks if there are any new laws going into effect July 1st in Virginia related to cannabis. No. Nope. Well, only related to expungement, and that just delays the timeline for deeper record sealings. Oh, okay, ma'ams. Let me see. Ma'am says in Virginia is the proliferation of vape shops that's made by entrepreneurs that adult use retail would be a thing sooner than later. So many can't figure it out for any other reason. No, I think it is predatory retailers. That's my personal opinion. I think that people are like, oh, I can see I can make a buck. I'm going to go in and make a buck. Like I get it, America is built on capitalism, but not caring enough about your customers and just selling them whatever isn't cool. And I know that there are retailers out there who think that they're selling legitimate products. They think their products are tested or are well regulated, but good feelings doesn't make it true. And then there are retailers that are like, oh, I think it's legal, I'll sell it, whatever. So just kidding, I'm back. It's going to be that kind of show. I don't think that people were like, oh, I'm going to start selling weed illegally and that's going to prepare me to enter the adult use market in Virginia. Because I'll tell you what, if that was your thought, every serious competitor is taking stock of you engaging in illegal activity, and so you can expect that whoever is reviewing licenses will get that. That's a thing that happens. People who are going to sink a bunch of money into licensing are going to make sure that if they think you're their competition, that those who are approving licenses know you were engaged in illegal activity. I see it all the time. Okay, I gotta scroll up to get to these questions. Deborah, I haven't read your question yet, so I hope it's good. Deborah says this, Virginia here, same. We have adult use legalization, but no adult use sales. That's correct. Where you are, Deborah says, where I'm at, they arrested me for smelling like marijuana, even though I hadn't smoked. I had just trimmed earlier and definitely smelled like it, but they are trying to charge me with DWI for the smell. Okay, well, I hope, you know what? This is interesting, Deborah, because I spoke to someone the other day who said she was charged and convicted of DUID for cannabis, even though she tested negative and didn't have cannabis on her. And I asked if she pled to it, and she said no. I'm not certain she knew the entirety of what she was talking about, but it's just, you can't, smelling like marijuana isn't a thing in Virginia. It doesn't matter. So I hope you have good representation. If you don't, we can point you in the direction. You can email us at legal@norml.org. Yeah, email us. Or you can also email us at info@virginianormal.org. Sorry that happened to you. Hey, Lumpy. Chris, I don't know what you're talking about. Thin vape liquids. Free the Plant, Florida asks this: what are your thoughts on the THC limits some states / regions are trying to impose on legal cannabis? On THC limits, so the way that every state that regulates cannabis in the United States controls for THC content is on a per serving and sometimes per package. That's normal. That's regular. That's what we do. It's the same way we regulate. That's how we regulate drugs in America. If you're a consumer and you're buying a product, you want to know what's in there. And a really convenient way to do that is to say, in one serving, in one dose, are these many milligrams. So I think that's great. I think consumers deserve that honesty and that clarity. Now, what I disagree with is when states or whoever, localities, attempt to impose these arbitrary percentages. That is like a screaming red flag that says, tell me you don't know anything about cannabis regulation without telling me you don't know anything about cannabis regulation. It's not how we regulate cannabis in the United States from evidence-based. I know that some states have since adopted stuff like that, and frankly, it's irresponsible. Listen, in Virginia, you can put cannabis oil into a regulated cannabis vape here. If you get a medical cannabis vape in Virginia, it has cannabis oil in it. You can also put some terpenes in there, but you can't put, you can't thin it out with medium chain triglycerides in order to meet some arbitrary THC percentage. That's dangerous. And that's what happens when you let someone who doesn't know anything about cannabis impose these, quote, potency limits on THC. So per serving, absolutely. That is how it should be done. Per package, great, whatever. You should be able to know as a consumer what you're buying. But if we're talking about these arbitrary percentages that someone thinks controls for potency, that poses risks to consumers, because then manufacturers start diluting the products that they have to meet these thresholds, and then consumers are inhaling things they don't need to be inhaling. Hey, Time Traveler. Time Traveler is in Illinois. Time Traveler says we have a lot of stores outside of the official dispensary operations selling cannabis. Yeah, that's happening all around the United States. Hey, Fred, happy Friday. Charlie, no, is the short answer. Charlie asks, do you ever see Virginia allowing self-certification for medical like DC does? A big boost in sales. No, I don't. And the reason is because we don't have a made up list of conditions or an age limit on our medical cannabis program in Virginia. Um, those are important things. So our medical cannabis program is pretty accessible. You can do telehealth. You can do all the things that other states grapple with. We don't have any problems with all of those things. You don't have to register. And none of those are why DC did it. DC did self-certification because Congress is preventing DC from using taxpayer dollars to enact retail sales. So they were really looking at a way, how could they get more people to participate in their medical cannabis program and transition them away from the illicit market? Because let's, imagine that you are in charge of running a state or a territory or something like that. Let's just imagine that. And you're like, hi, I'd like to reduce crime. Legalizing marijuana is a great way to reduce crime. And then some dude that doesn't even go there, he doesn't live in DC, he just works there. It's not his district. Some dude is like, no, I don't like marijuana, so I don't want you to be able to reduce crime by taking it off the street corner and putting it behind an age-verified counter. I want it to be squarely in the hands of illicit operators instead. No, and DC was like, we don't like that. We think it's better if people can buy safe, regulated products. So we're going to do everything we can to make it accessible to adults who are 21 and older. And that's why DC did it. I think what we're going to do in Virginia is hopefully elect a better governor. And then we're going to sign a bill. Jason, I agree. Jason says the Cherokee has it, meaning the Cherokee land in North Carolina. So the rest of us here in North Carolina should as well. Agreed. I saw some side note. I saw some really gross press release this week, and I don't know if they were trying to play into racism for the target of the press release. I don't know if they thought, oh, we're trying to target this type of audience with this press release and they love racism, so we're going to do that. Or if they're really that racist. But in this press release, this for-profit entity that isn't getting what they want tried to throw tribal nations under the bus. Didn't say anything about state legal medical cannabis or state legal adult use cannabis operators, but whined and complained that tribal nations were allowed to sell cannabis just like when any state implements an adult use or medical use model. Tribal nations can do the same thing if their voters so choose. And this for-profit company was whining about that they're doing it absent federal oversight. So is every state that's regulating cannabis. Ick. Is that really the narrative they want to point out? Anyhow. Deborah, I heard so many people say, we were at an event last weekend, we were at Pride Fest in Hampton Roads, and I had so many people come up and just offer us their unsolicited opinion about these unregulated products that they buy and how they went home and vomited for 4 hours, or, they passed out or whatever. Deborah says, side note, predatory retailers are so bad in Virginia and it's heartbreaking. This should be a safe medicine, not a market for dangerous products for a quick buck. High five. Hi, Ellie. Hey, Daniel. Deborah, please email us because you can't be arrested for smell. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Nick. Hey, Time Traveler. Time Traveler asks, are police officers certified in odor detection? No, in real life, no. Do they think they are? Sometimes. In fact, there's, a lot of states spend a lot of money, mine included, in educating what they call DREs, drug recognition experts. But it's fairly settled case law that you can't tell the difference if you're a person or a dog between hemp and marijuana. Steve thinks there should be no limit. Steve, I don't care if there's a limit. I don't personally find anything wrong with a per serving limit. It's like that, then you know, and then it's up to you as the consumer to make choices that are best for yourself. But if you don't have regulations in place that say, hey, manufacturers, this is what you can and can't do, then people get hurt. And we're seeing that in the unregulated market all day. Free the plant, thank you for clarifying. You were talking about percentages. Percentages are stupid. It is not how we regulate cannabis in the United States. They're talking about 10% in Florida. 10% in what? 10% in what? In products that are called hemp. Gross. Tell me more. Hey, David. Yeah, David, assuming that Senator Rouse is in the General Assembly, and assuming that Delegate Krizak is in the General Assembly, which he will be, then they would be the patrons of the adult use retail legislation again. I don't think we need AI enhanced cannabis policy for age verification. And I'll tell you why we don't need that, because cannabis retailers across the nation have a near 100% compliance rate for age verification. Cannabis does age verification better than any other industry in the US. It is not comparable to alcohol, where they're sometimes in the 70s. Hey, Chris, I don't know where you're getting that number from, but Chris believes that the bottom line is anti-cannabis lobbyists spend more than pro-cannabis lobbyists. Change that and cannabis will be legal. I don't know that that's true. I think there's a lot of emotional discomfort that comes with attempting to change the way that some lawmakers are used to making money. I say lawmakers because there are businesses that are used to making money. They're used to profiting off of criminalization. They're used to it. They like profiting off of criminalization. And then they fund largely conservative lawmakers. And so the business likes getting paid that way. And the lawmaker already knows they're reliant upon funding from those industries or businesses. That's really what we're seeing happening. I think in some states, absolutely. The prohibitionist lobbyists or entities, whatever they are spending more money than pro-cannabis entities are. When it comes to changing laws in sort of the remaining states, most of the states that are left don't have a ballot initiative process. And so then you have to go through the legislature, and most of these states are conservative controlled. So you are running up against that emotional discomfort with cannabis regulation and the threat to their sort of existing revenue streams that are enshrined in prohibition. What can be really helpful is in states like, let's use Florida as an example. Florida is a Republican-controlled state, does have a ballot initiative process. For some insane reason is doing so as a constitutional amendment. And we're going to see another round of that in 2026, where the cannabis industry is footing the bill for this ballot initiative. But we don't see that in states where you have to go through the legislative process. I assure you, we did not see that in Virginia. Did not have industry support in Virginia when we were enacting the medical cannabis program at all. after we did, and businesses were licensed, then they really do contribute to that, and they're have been really great partners for us here in Virginia. So that's what I think about that. He's too worried about underwear. I don't even want to know what that means, Nick. Hey, Curtis, good to see you. Glenroy, that is very interesting. Cole is sharing an opinion here that says we have to pay attention to how cannabis is marketed by licensed for-profit entities. I mean, I guess I don't care that they're for-profit. I live in America and have to exist in a capitalist society, so I'm not of the persuasion that we need to force them to be nonprofit. But I do like the second part that Glenroy said. Glenroy believes that the cannabis industry is becoming saturated by very conservative politicals in an effort to force everyone else out. I think that's probably very true in some states. Curtis, you hope that Georgia NORML can legalize it soon. I hope that Georgians can elect a better legislature, because you're going to have to do it through the legislative process in the Peachtree State. And you are fighting an uphill battle right there, my friend, as you well know. I am firmly of the opinion that the focus in Georgia right now is best directed at expanding the medical cannabis program and continuing to enact local decriminalization measures. Hey, OG Grandma in Washington. Chris, I don't, that's my voice. Are you in Louisiana? I see down there. Okay. I'm going to read your comment down there a little. Glenroy, your comment about odor detection. That's fantastic. Nick says Pennsylvania is too worried about underage and packaging. Here's what's fascinating. Pennsylvania, you already regulate cannabis. Just look at your medical program and do that. If you don't do that, then what you're saying is there's something wrong with your medical cannabis program, which is a program that you as a legislature have upheld. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? This is it's both fascinating and frustrating when lawmakers get all amped up about expanding from medical to adult use. Like there's anything magical about it. You are literally saying, oh, we have a medical cannabis program, and also if you're 21 or older, you can just come in and buy it. You need a tax revenue structure, and you need that's what you need. Nothing else needs to be different. Man. Exactly. Glenroy says percentages are subjective to a lot of different variables. Yeah, exactly. Percentage of what? Are you talking about percentage by dry weight? That's no bad. Percentage, that would apply to the plant and literally to the plant. The percentage of THC in the plant, the percentage in the product, and then you definitely do not want to be applying percentages to edibles, because that gets out of hand real quick. It's also stupid from the consumer standpoint. I'm not doing math when I take Tylenol. I'm not going to look at a bottle of acetaminophen and go, well, what's the percentage of acetaminophen in each tablet? I want to do some math to figure out how many milligrams there are. Okay, Chris, so you were saying that the medical cannabis program so Chris, you think that DOT in Louisiana can see medical cannabis registrations? Why aren't your medical cannabis, I sent your medical cannabis program. I mean, I know why, because Louisiana. But here's a fun story. In Virginia, we treat medical cannabis records as health records because they are. So they're not available for disclosure unless they're subpoenaed or in very limited circumstances. Glenroy, I do not disagree with this statement at all. In some states is absolute, like the remainders. Yeah, that's definitely true. Glenroy says the profitizing of criminalization is key to ensuring all of the conservatives are able to get into the industry. Once conservatives get in, legalization will be a cakewalk. Maybe, but this alcohol takeover of the unregulated market is really fascinating. It's gross and fascinating. Hey, legalize it now, South Carolina. Quick answer is no. Legalize it now, South Carolina. What does your map have? What is that a map of? I can't see it. I'm very curious. I want to see that picture. Because what I can tell you is Virginia should not ever be the same color as Texas. Legalize it now asks, is South Carolina any closer to legalizing medical cannabis? I mean, you're always closer, but like, is it happening soon? No. Legalize it goes on to say, this is getting ridiculous. I was arrested for smoking a joint on my own front porch last week. That sounds about right. That sounds about South Carolina. Brady, shut up. Please come to Tennessee. We do have a Tennessee, Pooh Noah. We do have a Tennessee NORML chapter. Hey, Michael, other Michael, good to see you. Does my body not naturally process? Yes, your body naturally processes Tylenol, just like it processes cannabinoids. I understand you're trying to say something about the endocannabinoid system, but we don't need to pit acetaminophen and Tylenol and cannabis against each other. I know, Chris. This is a really good point. Chris says medical does no good if people can't use it for legitimate reasons due to past use versus impairment drug testing. Imagine being tested if you took Robitussin a month ago. Well, I guess fortunately for all Robitussin users, that's water soluble. I presented on employment law and cannabis this week for a group of HR people for private colleges in Virginia. And that was something that they all seemed to understand, which was refreshing. They all seem to understand that cannabis stays in your system for a long time, and what is there to be done? Like, how do they figure out if someone's impaired? I mean, there is software available for that, but yeah. Positive urinalysis is not indicative of impairment in any state. I mean, you might have a made-up number that says, now we decided to charge you, but testing positive in a urinalysis doesn't mean anybody's impaired. This is well-established science. It just means there was consumption at some point in time. And when, who knows? Because THC metabolites are fat-soluble. Oh, Glenroy, you're in Nevada. I see. Yeah. Thoughts on Ohio pausing SB 56? Yep. What should be the next steps forward? Respecting the will of the voters, Ohio. That's what should be the next step forward. Ohioans voted to legalize adult use. Trying to roll back their provisions is gross. Anti-American, if you will. Those are words that I'm not going to get into. Maybe. All right, let's see if we have any questions. Hey, everyone who just joined us on Instagram, if you have questions, drop them in the comments and I will read them. Also, please hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. Hey, Normonius, any update on Texas? Yes, and thank you for getting me back on track with the rest of the news. Hey, Glenroy, yes. Glenroy says, I can see I'm one of 3 veterans on here. Is there a veteran-led pro-cannabis organization? Yeah, there are lots of them. There are lots of them, but I can also assure you that NORML was for everyone. And we're the largest and oldest cannabis policy organization in the United States, and we are the only organization that is dedicated solely to representing the interests of consumers. So let's talk about Texas, because that is one of my top stories for the past 2 weeks. Texas did have its medical cannabis bill signed. Its medical cannabis expansion legislation was signed. And this, let me drop the link for you right here. Sorry, Instagram, can't give you the links, but the stories are on our Instagram, and you can find all of these stories on NORML.org. You can subscribe and you'll get them in your inbox tomorrow when we send out NORML's weekend weed read. Yes, John, we'll talk about Abbott's veto also as a side note. So Texas expands its medical cannabis program. I think it's September 1st when it takes effect. September 1st is when this takes effect. So we decided that with this expansion, now Texas qualifies as the 40th medical cannabis state. This does not count things like DC and Guam and Puerto Rico. This literally means the word state, because there's more than 40 jurisdictions when you count all of the other US jurisdictions, including states. But 40 states have now decided to legalize and regulate medical cannabis. Texas is the latest one we've added to that list. And the new law adds additional qualifying conditions. It also adds the ability for the state to license more dispensaries. It will permit botanical cannabis to be dispensed to patients. It allows vaporizing botanical cannabis, but not smoking. This is not uncommon for states to try this. It's something. But listen, you do what you got to do. The good news is they'll be dispensing flower. This happened. The one I can think of most recently was New York. New York's program was like this when it rolled out. They also changed their language because they had old percentage language, because this was an oil program originally. So they changed it. They got rid of that percentage and moved it to milligrams. So products will be able to contain up to 10 mgs of THC per dose and up to 1 gram of THC per package. That means 1,000 milligrams. And physicians can authorize up to a 90-day supply. So good job, Texas. Now, we talked about Texas a few weeks ago, and many times. You might recall that this was part of a compromise, purportedly, adding chronic pain as a qualifying condition. This was part of a compromise that involved the SB3, the hemp bill in Texas. And instead of signing it, Abbott vetoed it, and he instead called a special session. This, to me, reads as a cash grab. So what's happening around the country, particularly in states that have not gotten deep into cannabis regulation, You have all these unregulated products, gas stations, vape stores, whatever, that say they're hemp. Sure. And lawmakers are grappling with how to rein this in, how to regulate these products or prohibit these products, which is what they attempted to do in Texas. And what I really didn't like about that bill was that it criminalized consumers. No, don't do that. It's not criminalizing the consumer, should never be a part of that type of legislation. If you want to say you can't sell these products here, fine, say that. But criminalizing people for having them is gross. So they veto that hemp bill, and alcohol is suddenly part of the conversation. And we're seeing this around the country. States that haven't really done anything meaningful with cannabis regulation are seeing alcohol come in and say, oh, well, we would be the best regulators of this. You should just let us be the sole retailers of cannabis beverages, of THC beverages. That's what I should call them. That is something. I had a lawmaker from Wisconsin call and ask me about this, and was like, why in the world would we do that? Why would we say cannabis has to be regulated, and all these, with all these extraordinary regulatory provisions? But if alcohol waltzes in, we're just going to be like, sure, let them do whatever. Who knows where you got that from? Who knows what's in it? You print the label and just sell it. Hey, ship it across state lines. Alabama just did this. Alabama's like, yeah, marijuana is illegal here, but if you're an alcohol company and you wrote us a big enough check, we like that. We're going to let you, alcohol retailers, where marijuana is illegal, sell a 10 milligram THC beverage. So you're still going to arrest people for smoking a joint. But if you want to go buy a questionably regulated beverage, it's very intoxicating, that's okay. I'm surprised that Alabama did this, but that's what happened. That's what's happening. Anyhow, the point is I see this as a cash grab by the governor, calling a special session, pits these hemp operators who desperately want to maintain their businesses, right, and are going to donate heavily in advance of this special session, and then alcohol operators who want to come in and take it over. They're going to be ponying up, and they've got much bigger checkbooks. That's what I think. So thanks for bringing that up, John, so I didn't forget. Nick, thank you. Nick says, make sure you overload your politicians with take action letters. We have tons of letters for you in our Take Action Center. Gonna grab the link since my buddy Nick brought it up. Drop that in the chat for everyone. It's norml.org/act. Do what Nick says. Glenroy, I'm glad you like NORML. Thank you. Yes, vaporizing is just a sexy way. It provides emotional comfort. Look, it also provides, I mean, it is convenient for consumers, and it reduces smell, so there's definitely useful applications. Chris asks if I have thoughts on the movement of rescheduling this year. I would if we were in a normal timeline, but we're not. So, who knows what's going to happen next week? They could resume the rescheduling process at any point. But they're not, and this is despite President Trump having spoken about rescheduling and and claiming that that is a priority, that he would like to see, some focus on that during. It's not happening. Also, despite that, despite his campaign trail statements, you know, saying that he supports states' abilities to enact their own marijuana laws, that he would like to see more work on the rescheduling process. His administration calls for the repeal of the Rohrabacher-Farr language, the language that has been in every budget as a budget writer in the CJS since 2014. Rohrabacher-Farr later becomes Rohrabacher-Blumenauer, but this is the language, federal budget writer language, that prevents Department of Justice from using one single taxpayer dollar to go after patients or dispensaries or healthcare providers, anyone involved in a state legal medical cannabis program. Now, prior to this language being enacted, federal prosecutors routinely took action against dispensary operators and against patients in legal medical cannabis states. And it is entirely reasonable to assume that if this language is stripped out of the federal budget, as the Trump administration is for the 5th time calling for, then it's reasonable to assume that those actions will occur again, that they'll go back to, federal prosecutors will go back to taking actions against patients and medical dispensaries. We have been, trying to make sure everyone knows about this. Is deeply concerning. We sent out an email about it on yesterday, and I got responses from people who said, "Oh, I don't believe this is true." What do you mean you don't believe it's true? He did it every single year during his first term. The difference was Congress. Congress was much different during his first term than it is now. And ultimately, the way the government is supposed to function, which I know means a whole lot less now, the way it's supposed to function is that it's up to Congress whether or not to include or exclude this language in CJS. So you need to tell Congress, don't strip medical cannabis protections from the federal budget. So far, 9,776 letters have been sent through our platform to your representatives in Congress. It would be great if you sent it again. If you've already sent it, that's fine. Send it again. Change the subject line of the email. That's all you have to do. When you go to send this and the Senate makes you pick some subject line, some topic, and when your representative also has you have to select a subject or a topic, it doesn't matter what you pick. It literally doesn't matter. Pick anything. It doesn't matter. What that's doing, those choices, we don't have any control over it. That's dictated by the Senate or the House API. And all that's doing is funneling your email to the staffer, or more likely intern, that's answering mail. It doesn't matter what you pick. It really doesn't. As long as you send it, the office is going to get it and send it to the right person. Send your letters telling Congress not to strip medical cannabis protections from the federal budget. Yes, exactly. OG Grandma says the alcohol distributors are driving the Texas dialogue. And in many states, not just Texas. Hey, Insulin, good to see you. Where's my beverage? There it is. Thanks, Chris. I'm glad you think I'm humorous. Hey, Nick. And yeah, descheduling also agreed. Nick says descheduling is a big must. And yes, now these, of course, are two separate processes entirely. One does not negate the other. It is fine for the administrative process to move forward about rescheduling marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, because that's all that the current rescheduling process that's underway, that's all it can be about. It can only be about moving from 1 to 3. Descheduling is not a part of this rescheduling conversation that is dictated by the language of the petition and is only about moving 1 to 3. And that is all well and good and fine. And, you know, at most, it opens up the potential for licensed businesses to take tax deductions. It doesn't have any impact on the consumer. It does not hand marijuana over to big pharma or any of those other weird BS you've heard. Now, descheduling, however, can happen, has to happen by Congress. Congress has to pass a bill that will remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act altogether. So, Congress. Thank you, John. I wanted to talk about, you're keeping me on track today, my friend. I wanted to talk about Maryland Governor Wes Moore. He, issued another nearly, like really just a few shy of 7,000 marijuana-related pardons. So he had previously issued 175,000 marijuana-related pardons, and now is adding another 7,000 to that. He did that on Juneteenth. Good job, Maryland Governor Wes Moore. Did I put that? I put that. We have a story on our front page. I put that in there. If you can distinguish OG grandmas. I didn't even read this until before I went on my rant, so fun. If you can distinguish the difference between re and descheduling, don't worry, I can, unsurprisingly. Now, whoever is doing this right or knows the difference, their problems are with deference and discretion. Yeah, it wasn't an accident that this language was removed. There was a request to remove this language. It's not someone didn't overlook it. It's the 5th time they've asked to remove this language from the federal budget. Yeah, Quinn makes an interesting point here. Okay. Quinn says, here's the problem with the legalization or descheduling when you have mainstream media pushing false narratives that influence the less informed. I mean, that's a problem with everything, right? And we have keeping me on track. We have 2 more stories that I want to share with you this week that talk about that. So a lot of you have written to us asking us about all of these mainstream media stories you're seeing about marijuana as it relates to cardiovascular health. And we have published extensively on studies that say there's no real link between cannabis use and heart health, particularly when it comes to like myocardial infarction, heart attack, or hardening of the arteries, or stroke. We published about a number of studies about this, and there's another study that we didn't have to wait or look hard. It came right out. This study, like so many other ones, concluded that there's no significant link between current marijuana use and an increased risk of heart attack. I'll read you a little bit from it. Adults who acknowledge having used cannabis within the past 30 days do not have a significantly elevated risk of heart attack as compared to non-users, according to data published in the American Journal of Preventative Medicine, Focus. A lot of you are writing to us about asking us about this. And so it is, I have it right there, the very top of the front page. It's also at the top of our news section, but you can read this, and Paul does a really excellent job at talking about the sort of sensationalism that's around this. This happens a lot. Some people are good at getting mainstream media to pick up their really hyperbolic statements around cannabis. And then another one that we see, that I think the top three right now are fentanyl-laced marijuana. It's not a thing. I'm saying it couldn't be a thing. It's just not a thing in the U.S. Marijuana potency, we talked about earlier, and then cardiovascular health. Those are arguably the top three right now. And Paul also authored a really great op-ed about debunking cannabis potency myths. He writes, from the onset of marijuana prohibition, criminalization advocates sought to advance their agenda and unduly influence the public by sensationalizing the supposed strength of cannabis. There are just some Paul highlights some really great examples in here, like in the 30s when Anslinger was, lobbying for the first ever federal ban on cannabis. He alleged that the marijuana of a century ago was so uniquely potent that it was, quote, entirely the monster hyde, the harmful effect of which cannot be measured. Since then, legalization opponents have continued and repeatedly alleged that cannabis potency has exponentially grown stronger. In fact, in '96, then Senator Joe Biden said that the potency of 1990s weed, we've moved from the 30s to the 90s, was unlike anything America had ever seen. He says this, quote, it's like comparing buckshot in a shotgun shell to a laser-guided missile. I assure you, he did not write that. But I have a really good idea as to who did. It's so ridiculous. So crazy. Anyhow, modern day prohibitionists are no different, and they continue to engage in the same rhetorical tactic. I think you all know how cannabis works. That's why you're here today. Exactly, insulin. And I think 35 is really like, we're talking about the plant here, and this insulin's talking about the plant in this statement. He says marijuana potency is pretty much capped today. Anything above 35% in the plant is pretty unrealistic just based off plant material to THC ratio. You can't grow trichomes only. And even we're not really seeing plants regularly like that. 30 is about the limit. There's even some literature that alludes to inaccurate laboratory analyses, and that it might not even be as high as it's purporting to be. You're welcome, insulin. I hope you enjoyed your laser-guided missile weed. Insulin says, we had some dank in the 90s, JM. I'm personally offended. Well, I'm glad you survived your laser-guided missile weed. Hey, Devon, we had a whole campaign for that, my friend. Devon, I like your avatar. Tell Pennsylvania Democrats to allow weed without owning the stores like they do with liquor. Yeah, we did. Let me see if we still have that up because I think we do. I think we still have that action alert up, and I really want to share it with you if we do. Oh my gosh, can we just get to the right page? Um, oh, I bet we took it down. Anyhow, where'd it go? Here it is. Give me a sec. I'm getting it for you right here. Okay, so here's the action alert, Devon. Just say no to state-run dispensaries. And even if you're not in, here's a sign. Here's another way you can help. There's a sign. You can you can put that up wherever you want. You can download it, print it, put it up. I also made, I don't know what I'm looking around for. I made a sign like a campaign sign that says "Just Say No to State-Run Dispensaries." You can find them in some lawmakers' offices in your capital. We actually had a colleague of mine was on Capitol Hill, and one of our local chapters had the signs for a press release, a press event, and this colleague of mine saw a Republican senator walking through the Capitol with one of the signs tucked under his arm. He stopped him and he goes, "Yeah, I stole it from the table. I want to put it up in my office," and he did. So yeah, you're welcome, Devon. Thank you for watching. You can send action alert, share it with your friends. You can print out the sign, put it up wherever you want, and then people can scan the QR code. And so I wonder. I was I was thinking about using this other function in here. I wonder if it's a bad idea. I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid it's going to do something terrible. I should practice that function before I was going to show you the sign, but I don't. We've already had enough problems during this live stream. Oh, I don't know what your name is other than Letter Stream. So we're going to call you Jut because that's the end of it. Jut says, "I live in Maryland and have to drive an hour away to the closest dispensary. It's nuts." Yeah, it's like that. It's even worse in Virginia. That sucks. David, I understand where you're coming from. David says this: "I'm not a fan of growing the quote cartels run the illicit market messaging. I'm concerned there will be a new push to lock people up again if their weed isn't legal weed." I understand your concern first and foremost. Second, from a framing perspective, finding the sweet spot in the legislative process, you have to find the sweet spot. You have to find the language that influences those people who are in your way. And David's in Virginia, so that's why we're going to talk about Virginia. We use this, and I use this, and I know you've heard me say it. We talk about the unregulated market in Virginia. The unregulated market in Virginia has exploded during Glenn Youngkin's term because he has his head in the sand, because he doesn't want to do anything with the icky marijuana. What he's essentially doing is just making sure that the illicit market continues to grow. He's propping up organized crime. And I don't say cartels. I say organized crime because it's organized crime. and what I mean is not your friend who grows weed in his basement and sells it. That's sort of the point that we're trying to make, at least here when we're using that language, is that the illicit market in Virginia is not your friend who grows weed and sells it to you. Organized crime is the illicit market. The illicit market in Virginia that's upwards of $3 billion annually. That's big operations that don't just sell weed, they sell people. And they don't care about consumers at all. That's what we're talking about. So I don't like the word cartel, and I don't use it. But that's my explanation as to why we use that language here, is to explain to lawmakers exactly what it is they're facing. We're not, because some people will brush it off like, oh, well, some guy selling weed, I don't care about that. Well, it's not about some, friend of yours who grows weed in his basement. Hi, Melissa. Glenroy, both of these states have personal cultivation. I think Maryland has. Someone who's in Maryland. I'm fairly certain Maryland has personal cultivation. In Virginia, we have personal cultivation for anyone 21 or older. I think Maryland also permits personal cultivation. It might shock you to know that I do not have every state's laws memorized, but I don't. Let's see if I can. I'm going to look at Maryland, though. I suspect it's very similar to ours. You can have 2 plants. Sorry, Maryland. You can have 4 in Virginia. You can have 2 in Maryland. I think that distance thing is weird. I don't like that. I know other states do that. They're like, oh, well, if you're too far from the dispensary, then you can grow. That's very, to me, is very much like having a made up list of conditions for a medical cannabis program, where essentially you're saying, oh, well, I think your disease is good enough, so you don't have to go to jail, but you don't have the right disease, so you have to go to jail. I feel like that with the distance from a dispensary is like, oh, well, you're not far enough away to be allowed to grow your own plants, whatever. Just everyone, let people cultivate. Thank you, Insulin, for knowing. Yeah, that's a fair point too. Personal cultivation is an important part of any cannabis regulatory structure, but at the end of the day, it is still really a privileged opportunity, because largely you're going to have to be a homeowner. If you're in rental housing, then it becomes increasingly difficult for you to, or even if you own your property but you're in multi-family dwelling, it can be difficult. Stephen, I don't know what link you're asking about, but sure, you can share it. You're on Twitter. I can try and look and see what. I don't know when you're, but sure, yeah, share whatever. Sorry you did get here late, Scott. I really need to end this show. It's been going on for a long time. To leave. Oh, just to watch. Yeah, Steven. So all of the Live with NORML episodes are on our YouTube. So you can go to NORML's YouTube and find the entire thing. I'm going to get it for you. Give me a second. Podcasts. Is this right? Sure. Oh, nope, that's not it. View full podcast. I guess this is it. Yeah, okay. There, that should be the link, Stephen. Of course, it's not posting to Twitter, or if it is posting to Twitter, I can't see it. Yeah, just go to Twitter and go to YouTube and search NORML, and it's going to be the first one you find. All right, everyone, this has been a blast. I love hanging out with you all on Fridays, but isn't next Friday a holiday? So we're not going to. Sorry, not next week, but the week after that. Hopefully, I'll see you on July 11th. Or if anything else weird happens before then, we can always do a singular episode if there's a crisis, and sometimes there are. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I loved it. If you're watching afterward and you have questions, you can email us at normal@normal.org. But before we part ways for the weekend, friends, please go ahead, hit that like, follow, or subscribe button wherever you're watching so you never miss when NORML goes live. We try to do it every week. Sometimes we do, and sometimes I have to be somewhere else. All right, everyone, I'm J.M. Padini. I'm the Development Director here at the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. This has been Live with NORML. And as always, I will see you right back here next time. Bye-bye.